Okay, so welcome all of you. We'll be starting with the today's topic, that is the corporate social responsibility. Now, before we begin with this topic, Ashutosh has a question here regarding the daily news analysis. So we have been coming up with the contemporary topics and the weekly analysis. We have included a lot of important topics. You can just check out the playlist on the weekly general studies and current affairs. Before beginning the today's topic, that's a corporate social responsibility, the topic for the next session that we would be having is the question is digital economy an inclusive economy? Now, just giving you a brief idea about this, we are trying to bring this idea that is digital economy favoring only the rich or is it not? So it's a kind of again critically evaluate or critically analyze question that you have to bring about here. So just send in your answers latest by Sunday so that I can incorporate the feedback and give the feedbacks to the students as well. So for this answer, all the answers that we have received, I have tried to email it. Since there was lot of it, I didn't actually got a chance to include those here. So we have covered those by the email itself. So all those who have sent in, we have replied to those. So we would be continuing with the same strategy for the remaining classes as well. Now, first of all, before beginning this topic, let's understand why this was introduced as a topic for this lecture. Now, the idea was recently the government had a scheme which was Adopt a Heritage, and it talked about the corporate social responsibility, and that's why we have introduced this topic in this lecture. Since it's a kind of recent initiative by the government, it becomes really important for your upcoming examination and especially for your GS paper 4, that's the ethics. Now for ethics, a lot of students are really puzzled about how to score, how to work around, what are the points that they really miss out. So ethics is really challenging. I say for ethics, like if you leave aside the case studies that we would be covering in the separate lectures, the theory part that you have to cover is really scoring. So for the case studies, some of the students do really well, for others it becomes really hard, but the theoretical section that's there could be scoring for either kind of student. So that's really important to cover. So corporate social responsibility becomes an important section of your ethics. Students from public administration and pol science again would face this topic as a part of their syllabus. So those from those optionals would benefit here. Now, under the Adopt a Heritage scheme, it talked about the corporate social responsibility to the companies, and the companies who would be working around would be talking about, would be basically given the Monument Mitra or would be considered as Monument Mitra, and this is an idea under the vision building statement that has been given by the government. Now, however, this has been given, but there was a kind of limitation or a kind of disadvantage that this CSR has, because under the Adopt a Heritage scheme, the government says you cannot actually publicize your brand when you are adopting a monument. So that's the kind of real drawback that a company could face when the company is really putting in effort building the monument, preserving the monument, and so on. So again, this is important not only for your ethics but also for your culture section. So parts of this, excerpts from this could also be your substantiate your answers for culture. Now again, the two good examples that we would cover as of recent is the Red Fort that has been adopted by Dalmia Group, and again the trail to Gomukh. So that trail going to the origin of Ganga, we could say, is being adopted by the Adventures Tour Operators Association of India. So two of those have been recently taking place and therefore are really important. Madhvi has a question, where can you post the answers? So you can post the answers at contact us at Examrace. We have already mentioned that in the link, and again we would be giving you the feedback and replying to the same email regarding the suggestions for the next topic that is there, but latest by Sunday. After Sunday we won't reply for the answers that we would be receiving. So since it's a kind of huge number of answers that are coming up, it becomes manageable only till Sunday. Now the next is understanding. So that was a kind of background why we talked about or why we introduced this topic for this year's mains, that's 2018. Now the next topic that we take into account is understanding what is CSR. So we talked about the introduction of CSR, we talked about what is the basics and why we are incorporating it. Let's understand what is CSR. So CSR, or the corporate social responsibility, is also known as corporate citizenship or corporate consciousness. Now when we are trying to introduce this term, it was laid back in 1991 when Carroll said that it's not only the traditional and the basic social aspects that we are trying to cover under the corporate social responsibility or CSR, but we are also including the ethical perspectives. So ethics becomes a very important section under your CSR, and therefore it's again really important for your mains. So what it actually involves is 4 basic dimensions that you should be very clear about: the ethical dimensions, the legal dimensions, the economic dimensions, and the discretionary powers. Now ethical is whether the company feels that the company should involve in these and these work or so and so work. Now this could be again substantiated by the case studies which we have tried to introduce towards the last. So we would be talking about that later. When it comes to legal, it's, let's say in India, it's the section 135 of the Companies Act 2013 that talks about minimum of 2% of CSR that the company is having net worth of 10 million or net profit of 5 million would be taking in. So that's a kind of legal format that we talk about. Then you have economic aspects that are involved, definitely how much, how far they would contribute, and discretionary powers. Those are the powers that are exclusively lying down with the company itself. Okay, now some of you have a question. Prakash has a question here asking about the questions that's basically for zoology. So you can just check out those at doorstep. We have those there. Again, one of you have a question here regarding the geography question answer sessions. So geography, we would be introducing some of the recent topics. For example, you have the Kutunad below sea level farming that is highly vulnerable to climate change as of recent. So those are kind of recent facts that have come up in the field of geography. The higher IOD because of the monsoon. So those are some of the important topics really in line. We would be working much further with those. Okay, Shubham has a question regarding Hindi. So those are available at Examrace Hindi. Obviously the lectures that we are doing here, the online live sessions, are available only in English. Then you have Bapuni has a question regarding more classes for GS paper 4. Definitely we will be coming up with more classes for ethics as well as your culture, probably before your mains, as much as we can. Okay, so those are some of the important aspects that we are covering here. Now the next important thing is, what is the sole idea behind the CSR? So let's say there is a spread of epidemic, there is a natural disaster that has taken place, a flood that has taken place, or a drought that has come into the region. So in all those activities, in activities which require really kind of contribution from the big corporate organizations or the big corporates, so the reason being you have a kind of CSR that's there. It could be voluntary, but in India we can say it's kind of imposed 2% as we say. So that makes it sure that the companies are spending a part of their profit onto the development and a kind of social well-being of the region. Otherwise we can say these companies are only liable to the stakeholders, to the employees, but these big companies have to think besides the stakeholders, besides the employees, and therefore we say they have a kind of little contribution that they should have towards the society. So the impacts on the environment, we talk about green and renewable sources of energy to have a kind of cleaner environment. So all those are again some kind of CSR opportunities or CSR actions that are taking place. Sarvya has a question regarding polity NCERT 12th. Definitely we have already started working with polity NCERT class 11th. Once we complete 11th, we would be moving forward with 12th. Raj has a question regarding binary to decimal. We already have a video for that, so you can just refer that. Sampath has a question regarding economics. So economics we have already covered till 11th NCERT will be covering the micro-macro of 12th recently. So just have a focus on those, the basic topics, and then the Indian economics, the contemporary happenings. Those are really, really important. For economics specifically, I believe a little of statistics is important. So I understand you cannot remember a lot of statistical data, but yes, the basic GDP increase, the GDP changes should be the foreign exchange reserves, the forex reserves should be some of the data that you must remember. Now coming back to the CSR topic back here. Okay, the idea is, let's say in China we have Chinese consumers, and what the idea is to make them socially responsible. So companies produce high quality products and try to become socially responsible. In Germany we say they try to secure employment. In South Africa we say there is a need for more healthcare and education. So different countries have different focus areas where they actually want the CSR to work. So let's say in India we started with the adopt a heritage scheme, and we would proceed forward with such other incentives in the field of healthcare, in the field of education, and those could be kind of the concluding answer section that you are trying to do, where you try to bring out the points that these are the areas where India can still ask the CSR to happen, and we can talk about some of the innovative ideas that are there in that section. Now under CSR we talk about three basic aspects: the corporate philanthropy, which talks about actually the monetary donations that is taking place, and the benefits that are being given to the non-profit organizations. Under risk management we talk about the compliance that they need to take into consideration, and under value creation we talk about a kind of sustainable business model that must be developed. So CSR really talks about playing a kind of fair game, developing responsibility, working around the environmental parameters, bringing in green initiatives, cleaner fuels, so renewable sources of energy would be one of those, and trying to create a difference. Now this difference could be interesting and could vary from company to company. We have few case studies that would really bring in good ideas for you. So you have the volunteer efforts that is done by the business to the benefit of the society, and this is basically benefiting the company as well as the community. So when we say benefiting the company, how can we say company would be benefited? Let's say Dalmia Group is developing or adopting Red Fort. So Dalmia becomes a brand in a region surrounding to the Red Fort or the people who have heard about it. So what happens is the company's reputation grows. On the other hand, it is bringing in positive impact to the community, because it's believed that there was so much dust that was there on the Red Fort that if it was not removed, the structure could have just collapsed down. So those are the things that you are working for the community. So benefit to the community and benefit to the company, both of those are really important sections that we talk under CSR. Now when we talk about CSR, government has a rule. Let's say in India, government has a rule for the companies making a net worth or a net profit about certain billions. So we have the data for that. So that's one thing that's done for the bigger companies, the corporates, the real corporates. But even the small startups can actually help or take an initiative and work forward towards certain CSRs. It could be a kind of small initiative on their behalf, but since our question says, the question that we talked about, that man is a social animal. So since we say man is a social animal, even a small CSR could bring in huge results when it is combined. So we say drop in the ocean. So it's basically the drops and the drops collect to form the ocean. So that's how you grow under CSR. Now we have an interesting case study of Starbucks. Now Starbucks, even before the IPO was released in 1992, Starbucks was working around some of the basic issues. Those talked about 99% ethically sourced coffee that they are using. Then they talked about creating a global network of farmers across the world. So it's a global network, so obviously across the world. Then it talks about green buildings. It talks about million of hours of community service that they are doing. So those were some of the things that Starbucks really included. But as of recent, the recent plans are further more interesting. So it talks about hiring nearly 10,000 refugees across 75 countries. So that's a really good initiative. So in the last few classes we talked about the Rohingya crisis. So that's one of the examples where refugees could actually be involved in certain activities, and it's a kind of huge responsibility to engage them, to bring them into employment. Again, we are talking about, Starbucks is talking about reducing the environmental impact of the cups that it has, so changing the cups quality and the environmental leadership. So those are some of the goals that Starbucks has for future. So that's how you can basically explain your answers and your different topics. Madhvi has a question about the live classes. So live classes are held on Wednesdays for writing sessions, and before your objective examinations like prelims and net, you have the sessions which are basically the MCQs, and those are testing Tuesdays which occur on Tuesday. All of the classes are at 10:30, so that's how you can check it out. And again, we have a schedule that would be up. Some of that is already up, and the more would be up on the home page of the Examrace. So you can just check it out there. Okay. The next is the ISO certification. So under CSR we have ISO 26000 certification that provide guidelines which is much more qualitative in nature rather than quantitative, and it clarifies actually what social responsibility is, and it tries to translate the various principles of social responsibility that a big corporation has onto the society. So we specify 6 type of social initiatives that are taken into account. First is the philanthropy, where we talk about the donations. It can be in the form of charity. Charity could be in the form of cash, goods or services that could be done. Community volunteering, that's let's say planting of trees. If there is a flood prone area, if there is a drought prone area, sending the people from your organization, working with the the really needy people there. The next is socially responsible business practices. So these are ethically produced product segments that you are talking about. Cause promotion, that's basically to advocate certain campaign. So campaign against, let's say, cancer awareness would be a kind of cause promotion. The next is cause related marketing. So that's basically asking for donations or charity for a specific cause or a specific program. And finally, the corporate social marketing, that basically talks about the behavior change campaigns that are there. The basic triple line that's there behind any CSR is very important. It includes 3 P's, or we say 3 P's, that's people, profit and planet. So we talk about people, the people that are there in the community, in the society, benefiting the common man, the common people. We talk about the profit that the company has earned should go as a part into a kind of social responsibility that's there. And finally we say the planet, which talks about the sustainable measures for the planet, which talks about greener environment, cleaner fuel and so on. Bapuni has a question. She is panicked about paper 1 and unable to understand what to write. Basic ethics. So Bapuni, it would be great if you could pick out specific topics and email us those. So I would take those into preference before working around the classes of ethics. So just jot down the topics that you feel really are confusing for it, whether those are thinkers or whether those are the basics or the principles of ethics. So just send the list to contact us at Examrace, and we would be considering those at a priority. So any of you, if you have any topics that you consider should be given a priority, just email us those topics and we would definitely consider those. Now what do we actually consider under the CSR? We talk about politics playing a very important role, the individual ethic, the institutional ethics. So both of the ethics are really important when we talk about CSR. How the companies are really earning the profit. So when they are earning the profit, it's really from the common people they are earning the profit, and when they are earning the profit from a common people, a little of it should actually go back to the common people. So that's one of the basic ideas behind CSR. We also talk about managing the risk factors, changes in the market economy that are taking place. So what are the advantages and the disadvantages? Advantages, as we said, it generates cleaner fuel, sustainable environment, more capital inflow, creates a reputation for the company, it avoids any kind of bribery or kind of corruption into the system, it explains a company what their standards should be, how much they should stand for, how much they should spend for, and some areas like downsizing could really basically redress the issues that are related between the company and the employee. But definitely it has certain disadvantages. There are additional bureaucracy that's there. The operation and the maintenance cost of any CSR project is again an important section that the company has to bear onto, because it's not just that the company would spend so much amount into certain activity. Besides that, it would have to put in some manpower, some people, employ certain staff for working and checking out those activities which are actually taking place or not. And then one of the another disadvantage is the reporting. So whether proper reporting is done or not, and whether the results are apt or not. So as per the CSR, the 2013 Companies Act in India, we say the corporations with a revenue of more than 10 billion or a net worth of more than 5 billion have to spend 2% of their profit to charity for 3 years preceding the financial year. So for a consecutive 3 year, if they have that much profit, they have on books, they have to have a kind of 2% CSR that they have to consider. Okay. The next is some of the classic examples that we are talking about. So we have come across two major companies here. So this is a kind of case study section that you can introduce in your answers. And for ethics, if you bring around case studies like we did for Starbucks, Claris, and then we are talking about Microsoft India. So those are some of the examples that we have brought about. You can bring about any other company that you are familiar with, even a small startup you can bring out, that's totally fine. But when you are bringing out case studies, it's really an added advantage for your ethics paper. So let's say talking about Claris, the partners of Claris for CSR are, now this has a kind of wide range. It's ranging from blind organizations to renal foundations to developing the city of Ahmedabad, talking about the riverside education. So it's a company based in Ahmedabad. So most of the efforts are taken closer to the city development and healthcare. So those become the two major focus, and again education and management. So education becomes the main area. So as we talked out or extracted from those, the thematic areas that it's working around is healthcare, education, sustainability, and promoting sports, Paralympics and Olympic sports. Similarly, you have Microsoft India. Some of the major partners are Quest Alliance, NASCOM, Oxfam, the Aga Khan Rural Support System, and Charities Aid Foundation. Some of the areas Microsoft India is really working on are basically eradication of poverty and hunger, so matching the sustainable development goals, the SDGs, talking about good healthcare, good water supply and sanitation, providing gender equality and women empowerment. And since you have the foundations that are there, rural support that's there, so developing the rural suburbs and talking about the heritage conservation. So those are some of the case studies that you can actually bring out for your answer writing for ethics. So that was it for corporate social responsibility. As we said, we will be bringing around more topics for your mains in the upcoming session. So if you have any doubts, any questions, you are free to leave those in the comment and we would be replying those. And again, send in your answers to contact us at Examrace latest by Sunday. So we would have the next class on our Independence Day. Jai